Welcome, everyone, to the Sports Writers Podcast. Here they are, the Sports Writers, Phil Stacey, Matt Williams, Nick Giannino, all from the Salem News. And I'm Bill Newell with MSO News Sports. And so let's begin. We got a lot to talk about. Nino, you late to join us here just before we hooked up here, but we're going with golf first here. And then some other things, maybe,
All right,
But,
let's do it.
All right. What can you share with us as we speak on Monday night?
Yeah, well, we had the Division One and the Division Three golf sectionals today. Division One and Division Three North sectional tournaments. I made it over to Renaissance in Haverhill for the Division One, so we can start there. And we had St. John's Prep got in. They finished third overall. The top three teams out of, I think there was 14 teams competing there that qualified for the sectionals, and St. John snuck in with a third place finish, beat out BC High by 2 shots. BC High was a defending state champions, and I thought it was funny because 2 years ago, St. John's Prep won it all. 2021, they were the Division One state champs, and then last year they lost by 1 or 2 shots in the sectionals to BC High to not get into the state championship. This year, BC High was the defending state champions from last year, and they lost by 2 shots to St. John's Prep in the sectionals to not advance. So just goes to show you how competitive it is year in and year out, and one shot here or there can really be the difference. So St. John's Prep did enough to get in. They had a 1 under par performance from both Terry Manning, their senior captain, one of just 2 seniors on the team. It's a young Eagles team this year, and as well as Trip Hollister, a junior. They both shot 1 under 71 at a pretty challenging course. It didn't play really long today. I think it was about 6,000 yards, from the white tees. So you could really attack some holes. But the greens were super fast, and, conditions there are always pretty challenging with all the fescue and whatnot. So those are 2 really good scores for St. John's. Those 2 kids finished in a tie for second place. To the winner from North Andover, who his name is escaping me right now. Let me see if I can pull up the final standings here. Cooper Moore from North Andover shot a 4 under par 68. And then there was a few others at 1 under with Tripp and Terry from St. John's to finish in second. So they're moving on to the state championship next Monday at Great Horse, out in Western Mass. I think it's Hamden, Mass. So they'll be looking to get their second state championship in 2 years. And I think they got a real shot at it. They had the 2 scores in the low 70s today, and then their other 2 scores that counted, they take the top 4 out of your 6 golfers. They take the top 4 scores, and they had 81 from their freshman there, Seamus O'Halloran, who's had a fantastic season for them, probably the best season ever by a freshman at St. John's Prep. I'd have to check the records, but excuse me, definitely right up there. So he had an 81, and then they had a couple 82s as well on the day to sneak through. So good performance from them. The 82s were Brian Laughlin and Jack Carew to be able to get those necessary strokes to move through. Then we had Beverly and Peabody were the other 2 local teams that to compete today. Neither one of them fared super well as a team, but I think they probably played just as they expected to, or maybe even a little better than they expected. Peabody finished in 11th in their first playoff since 2015. Their head coach Peter Cronin was telling me. So they're slowly building that program back up. They got a great performance from their senior number 1 guy, Matt Ryder, today. He shot an 8 over par 80. So that was really good for him. And a junior there, Tristan Joyce, shot an 87. So both those guys pretty solid out there today, again, on a tough course. And just happy for the coach was really happy for the program, who they were kind of bottom feeders in the NEC just a few years back. And they were able to get in with a 500 record this year and played pretty well. They had 4 out of their 6 guys break 100. So they were happy with that. And then Beverly came in right behind them in 12th. Their top scorer was Anthony Bearer with an 87. Shout out to Lucas Carbone, who was, I think, battling food poisoning today. He had a rough go at it out there. I don't know that I think they had maybe a team lunch beforehand at Wendy's or something of the other, and just didn't sit well with him. But he grinded it out for 18 holes for Beverly, so credit to him. But yeah, that was kind of the recap for our local teams today. Again, the winner of the tournament was North Andover. Their top guy shot that 68, and then Winchester High School was the other to finish in the top 3 and move on to Great Horse. So
Nick,
that was kind of that.
I'd like to throw a golf tidbit out for you, if you don't mind.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Your good friend, Frank Dully from
Sure. Yeah.
from Kernwood Country Club,
Yeah.
going into the NEPGA Hall of Fame this Saturday at Pleasant Valley.
Oh, very nice. I'm sure our guy Gary Larrabee will be over there getting some notes, right?
I'm sure getting notes and also getting some free food. Yes.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's just take a quick look. They weren't up last time I checked, but they are now. Division 3 golf today. We had Hamilton Wenham competing at Stowe Acres, and it looks like they finished in 5th place, so they will not be moving on to the state championship. They had a fantastic season, just a few losses in the Cape Ann League this year, and just looking at their scores, 5th place. Looks like Aiden Noonan, who was their top scorer all year, shot a 77, 5 over par, so that had to be right up there with the top scores on the day. And then Grayson Minich with an 84, Cooper Miller 86, Cam McIntosh 87. So they had some solid outings today from those guys, but it looks like a pretty competitive field. Top 2 were Weston, who's always been a powerhouse, and Stoneham got in as well. Good season for the Generals, though.
I saw too, Nick, where we're helping our friends on Cape Ann. I believe it's Sam Kesterson from Rockport finished 10th overall individually.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was a nice showing for them, for him, I should say.
Yeah, so Rockport didn't qualify as a team, it doesn't look like, but they must have been able to send him. And
yeah,
let's see the leaders here. Rockport, yeah, tied for 9th. So in Division 1, the top 10 moved on. Top 10 individuals moved on to the championship. So he might be moving on.
Oh, wow.
Okay. I'm not sure what the cut was for Division 3 because there were less teams, but he might be moving on. And then Aiden Noonan from Hamilton Wenham looks like he's tied for 2nd place. So he'll be moving on to represent the Generals at the state championship.
And I know Manchester Essex had a representative too, sophomore Gray West, who took 21st overall. He shot an 84 today.
Yeah, solid day for him. I see him right here. Tied for looks like he moved up.
Oh,
tied
okay.
For 19th. Must have been some score changes.
You can't slip any golf by me, Giannino.
Nah, you're on top of it. You're on top of it.
What can I say?
Well,
So,
I will say this. Go ahead, Nick. You want to?
No, I was just going to say Division 2 is going to be on Tuesday back at Stowe Acres. So we got some teams competing there as well. We'll have to give you an update on the podcast next week, I guess.
Nick's going to win the word of the night tonight. Fescue. We did not expect that one coming up, but Nick, nice job with the fescue. All right.
That's what they call it.
All right, let's get to some football here. I know Matt and Phil, you were both at the prep on Saturday for the big game, the 25-game MIAA unbeaten streak for CM ended by the prep with their 19-8 win. The lovable Phil Stacey. Everybody loves this guy.
Somebody loves me. Yeah.
I brought something too with me, Phil, but
yeah,
I didn't know how to work this in. It didn't really fit, but that's all I got.
This guy just doesn't like being in the room and not having the attention. So
this pumpkin really loves me. Okay. No. Okay. Fine.
Sorry, bud.
All right. Okay. Matt, why don't you pick it up? What's your takeaway on the prep? We were wondering whether.
Don't tell that guy you're going to carve him up, right?
Oh, shh, please, Matt, come on.
Speaking of carved up, isn't that what Cam LaGrassa did to the defense? Right, 254 yards rushing for the kid, and a breakaway 75-yard touchdown in the second half that really salted that game away, put the game away. St. John's just beat up CM up front. To tell you the truth, I can't say I was super impressed with Catholic Memorial. I mean, I know they're very, very good and everything, but their skills players did not appear to be any faster or shiftier or more dangerous than those on certainly St. John's or some of them in the area here. I mean, they just did not, they tried to run the ball and were not able to. And, part of that is a credit to the prep defensive line and their linebackers are excellent. Coach St. Pierre was effusive in his praise of Matt Callahan, the linebacker, and certainly have some others. But, in retrospect, the more I've thought about it, like the Catholic Memorial backs in the past, could make a guy miss and then use breakaway speed. And I just don't think they had that in this game, whether that's health, whether that's, losses to graduation and water sort of seeking its level. I don't know, but they just did not appear to have that one-on-one ability. And when you don't have that, you got to have perfect blocking. And when you lose the battle up front, that's just not going to happen. And so St. John's was really able to bully them. I mean, the rushing yardage was something like 354 to 56. So, or 305 to 56.
Right.
So, I mean, when you're plus 250 in rushing, who was the bully and who got picked on, was the way I put it.
Yeah,
No,
I would reiterate that first of all, Bill, as you said, both Matt and I were there. We both wrote stories from there. Willie wrote an outstanding piece, and if you haven't had a chance to read it, you should. But it's about the physicality that Brian St. Pierre preaches, and what I loved about the story is that Matt hit it on the head. When everybody else is going to a spread and trying to open things up and RPO and multifaceted and whatnot, Brian is intent on taking it back to 1960 and just pounding away at teams. And that's not to say they can't throw the ball. Of course they can. And they did for several big plays, including their first touchdown when Merrick Barlow made a one-handed catch in one-on-one traffic to haul in a 31-yard touchdown pass on 4th and long. But pounding the ball is their game. They don't shy away from it. They don't disguise it. They come right at you and do it. They got a really good back in McGrath to do so. And that the special package that they have for Jimmy Nardoni, with it's just basically pushing the pile, but this isn't goal line. This is looking to get to 7-8 yards chunk if they can. That seems to be working very, very well for them too. Willie, you mentioned Callahan defensively. I also thought had a great game for St. John's, and we didn't mention him post game because I think that this is what the prep expects from him. But their captain, John Dragotis at linebacker, number 44, he was all over the place too. If he wasn't in on tackles, he was pushing the ball carriers towards teammates who would make a tackle. So I thought he had a really nice game too. You got to remember too, St. John's lost their number 1 running back on the very first carry of the game. Dylan Aliberti left the game after an 11-yard run, never came back. It all, I don't want to say it all fell on LaGrassa because Nardoni was part of that too, but LaGrassa shouldered that load more than did his job. And I think I mentioned you, Willie, during the game. When was the last time you saw Catholic Memorial punt 5 times in a game to a team from Massachusetts? I don't even know if they did that when they went down to Florida this year. I mean, 5 times? Catholic Memorial doesn't do that against anybody. So for the prep to hold them, 3rd and long, 2nd and long, that kind of thing, over and over, time and time again. And the one touchdown they gave up was just a big play over the top 80-yard pass after the prep second touchdown. That really says a lot for that prep defense. I mean, credit to Chris Tolios, the defensive coordinator. We said the same thing after last year's Super Bowl upset of Springfield Cathedral, but boy, he can really put together a great game plan. And the Eagles executed it perfectly on that side of the ball defensively by playing what Matt wrote about, physical football.
I mean, it helps when it rains, right? I mean, both those games, both quarterbacks really, and obviously, Springfield's quarterback a lot better than the CM kid who looked overmatched and really, had some guys that he just wasn't able to hit on this day, and so that certainly helps. But there's a mentality that when you can play in the rain and it doesn't bother you, and you play tough, right? And that's what they've built over there. Which again, 10, 15, 20 years ago, the prep used to lose these big games because they were never the tougher team. And so you really have to give Brian St. Pierre his flowers for changing that. Because it's the same kids. They're drawn from the
And
same
Brian was
communities.
not wearing headwear, I noticed. He didn't have a hat. He didn't have a hood. He was just out. He had a towel around his neck. But and I don't know if that's a thing. It doesn't matter. That's not going to determine whether you win or lose. But it's maybe, hey, we're out here. We're out here together. This is the weather. It is what it is. Just go out and play.
Yeah, no, and they're tough. And I knew that as soon as I saw the forecast. I mean, I didn't pick the prep in the paper because we have to pick an upset. As soon as I saw the forecast, I said, well, they thrive in these games, and a lot of other teams, for crying out loud, CM has an indoor practice bubble, right? So, and I'm sure the prep side, not to like turn this into like a Bill Belichick Patriot way thing, but just like the Patriots, I'm sure the prep practices in the rain. I don't think they go inside, right? So I mean, as soon as I saw the forecast, I said, well, this is, this is a dream for the prep. They're gonna want to be outside, pushing people around, knocking heads, while the other team's looking for tents and umbrellas. And that's, to me, that's the way it played out. And I think that's just such a big credit to Saint and the mentality that he has, instilled over there, and that it's his mentality and it's contagious. Every one of the 150 kids on that roster buys into his thing 1,000% and would run through brick walls for the guy. And that's, you can't teach that. You have to give a lot of credit for that.
Well, this might sound
you
like
can't
a
buy
cliche,
that
but
at the store.
I think anybody who was there would tell you this was not an upset. It might have been scoreless at halftime, but the prep was control and play at that point. You got the sense when they scored that first touchdown, got the ball back and scored again, that was going to be their day, and they held through to it.
Let me ask you guys this question. So here we are, the second quarter, about 4 minutes to play in the first half. The game is scoreless. It was scoreless at the half. The prep has the ball at their own 29-yard line with a 4th and something to go.
Yeah.
And they go for it.
Yeah.
And they get it. And they
Yeah.
get the first down. So what were you guys thinking at that point? I mean,
well,
if they don't get the first down, that gives CM a short field.
I think Brian knew, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, Matt, but I think Brian knew that his team was already winning that battle in the trenches. And yeah, we can get this. We can get a 4th and short here. Maybe they're going to think we're going to try to draw them offside, which actually they did later in the game. And that was
That's
huge
right.
play in this game.
Yeah.
Huge play when they got CM to jump offsides. But in this instance that you're talking about, they came out intent on running a play. They ran the play they wanted. They got the first down with Nardoni, and they kept that drive going. They didn't get points out of it, but they put another notch on their belt in terms of winning that physicality battle one play at a time.
The game, I mean, to be fair, the game was there for Catholic Memorial to win it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they get a touchdown, and then don't forget, the Nardone package was in fact stopped when the ball was squirted loose in the heavy rain. CM recovers a fumble right after making it 16-8, and the prep defense got the stop. So, if you're a panicky fan or one of these old school Red Sox fans waiting for something bad to happen, at the moment of that fumble, you're probably thinking, oh boy, here we go again.
And 2 picks before that too.
Right. And so, if you're CM, you're thinking, well, geez, if we had made a couple of plays on offense, I mean, you get 3 turnovers, and it very easily could have been a 4th on the touchdown pass to Barlow. The DB misplayed it a little bit, tipped it. It goes right to Barlow, who made a great, concentration catch and was wide open to go the rest of the way. But if the DB times his jump a little bit better, that could be a 3rd pick, and we're talking about a whole different ball game here. So, but I'm sort of a believer that, having said all that,
there's that catch right there, I
win,
believe, right there with you guys.
Yeah, that's
beautiful.
That's
Yeah. I'm a believer that when you win the battle in the trenches and you're the more physical team, you sort of make your own breaks. You sort of make your own luck when it comes to that stuff. So, I'm not discounting that. But I do think, like, yeah, if you're CM, you're thinking like, well, geez, if you take away, the tip ball, and if we take advantage of our 3 turnovers, I mean, for crying out loud, you lose a game when you win the turnover battle 3-0 on the road. That'll give you nightmares, right? I mean,
All right, I'm watching the clock here. We got a lot to cover here. Nino, and we want to talk about a couple games coming up this weekend, but you were at Winthrop with me on Friday night, or I was with you, whatever. We just happened to both show up.
We were
And
together.
I think that's more like it. But anyways, in that game, Winthrop comes from behind, scored late to beat Salem 20-19 to hand the Witches their very first loss of the year.
Yeah, I think a little bit of a humbling loss for the Witches, right? Tough to go a whole season without losing, and Winthrop was definitely a worthy opponent. You know, we've seen what they've done to some other good teams in the conference. Obviously, the close one with Peabody until that final quarter, and they got some talented players, right? They have that. We kept talking about it, Bill, and even with their coach about that big play ability from them, because it seems like Salem would stop them 2 or 3 plays in a row, and then the next thing you know it, they're ripping off a 80-yard touchdown. So they had the ability to do that. They stuck with the game plan. Winthrop did, and Salem, while they shut them down for a lot of the game, they let up a few big plays, and ultimately the nail in the coffin was that 80-yard touchdown pass down the sidelines. Towards the end of the game that sealed it. And Salem got the ball back. They've done it before where they've kind of had these 2-minute drill scoring drives, but they weren't able to get it done. It was a rainy, wet night, right? Maybe tough to hold on to the ball a little bit, but a couple drop passes in that last drive, and they just weren't able to go the distance and keep moving the chains for the winning score. But I think in the scheme of things, it might be good for them to get a loss like this moving forward here into the playoffs in a couple weeks. And again, Winthrop was definitely a worthy opponent. Salem started strong. What was it, 14-0 or 13-0 in the first quarter, right, Bill?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Winthrop kind of chipped away.
I've seen Winthrop. That was my 4th time I've seen them this year. So I'm hounding them. But anyways, they're a very good team. They're a solid team. And the thing is that thing you think about Salem, all they had to do to win that game, and this is a team that can move the football up and down the field the week previously and moved it up and down the field to some extent against Winthrop. Not like they did against Classical. That was a high scoring affair,
right.
but they had a 3rd and 2. If they get a first down, deep in Winthrop territory, they can run the clock out more or less, probably.
Yep.
And
I think
they had a 4th and 2 and didn't get it. And they turned the ball over on downs, and Winthrop shoots an 81-yard pass out there.
And that was, like you said, that was in the red zone. So they had driven all the way down the field. They were looking great, and 2 quick stops by the Winthrop defense gave them a chance, and they capitalized. And
they looked like they were going to make it a 2-score lead. You know what I'm saying? A 2-score lead and not lose by a point.
Yeah, the guys in the booth were already talking about what Winthrop's record is going to look like and how they're going to do in the power rankings coming down the stretch here, and then everything flipped. Big win for Winthrop, but I was going back to the Salem. The extra points. Those ended up being pretty big. I mean, Salem finishes with 19 points. You get 1 or 2 of those 2-point conversions to go, or you get they're using Corey Grimes as their kicker, who he's done a pretty decent job with all season, but they really don't have a kicker that they can go to and trust for those extra points. One was blocked on the game, and so you have to go for 2. And they went for 2 on that final touchdown. They would have been up 21-20. Winthrop would have had to go for 2. You see what I'm saying there? So those plays after they score can come back and be really significant. We saw it even in the Lynn Classical game. It was like 4-point lead here, 3-point lead there, 5-point, because everyone wasn't getting the 2-point conversions or the extra points. So that was big too. I think Salem made the right call going for 2 on that final touchdown. They weren't able to get it.
I do too. I really do. I think they were running the ball. As Coach was mentioning afterwards, they were at that point, they were running the ball well against Winthrop in those short runs. Ozuna was not being stopped, at one point, at one point in the game. Maybe later on he got stopped, but anyways. All right, guys.
Mention, Bill, the game winner, the 80-yard touchdown pass, only completion of the day for Winthrop. They just ran.
I noticed that in the box score. Yeah.
Only completion of the day.
That's been effective. Right.
I think the coach was joking. The Winthrop coach was joking. He's like, well, he was 2 for 2 because he threw to the other team once because Albert Poole's got a pick 6 for Salem.
Right. It's a good, both both to the end zone.
Both to the end zone. Yeah. Yeah.
It's not inconceivable that these teams could meet again. I mean,
Yeah.
if the power, I mean, we'll see Tuesday morning, but let's say Winthrop moves up a little, Salem moves back a little. They're like 3-6, say. That could be a second round matchup. We could be in for a classic.
All right.
Yeah.
Our clock is really winding down here. I want to touch on two games. Peabody undefeated going to Salem, who just suffered their one loss Friday night. And then we also have Danvers playing over at Marblehead, which is turns out to be what would be an important game in the Northeastern Conference Dunn division. These two teams, are well, Danvers, according to the Salem News here, I have 3-0 in the Dunn, Marblehead 2-0 in the Dunn within divisional play. Their two wins came in that Dunn division. So let's try to divide this up and just go as quickly as we can here. Willie, why don't you take Peabody at Salem? We'll see what you're thinking. You've seen the Tanners all year.
Oh, I mean, I could talk about that game all day long. I mean, there's so many.
Just take a minute. Just take a minute.
There's so many fascinating matchups all over the field. I think really what it comes down to is can Salem's offensive line, keep the Peabody pass rush at bay long enough for Corey Grimes to get rid of the ball, and if they can, I think Salem has the weapons on the outside to cause some problems for this Peabody defense, which not many teams, if any teams, have been able to cause them any problems all year long. But not many teams have been able to keep that pass rush at bay, right? And Corey's the biggest, strongest quarterback that they've played. The Ben Roethlisberger type. I mean, if you lunge at him or try to arm tackle him, he's going to shuck you off and get rid of that ball. So I think that's really where the game is decided. I think the kicking game is a potential X factor too. I mean, again, as Nick mentioned, with the extra points, I mean, Peabody's got a sure thing at kicker. So if this is a shootout like the Classical game, you score 6 touchdowns, 6 extra points, that's an extra touchdown, right? That's a whole possession that you get potentially if you're getting those stops on the 2-point conversions. So that's my other potential X factor. But as much as it's going to be interesting to see how Salem chooses to defend the Eli Batistas of the world, if Salem can stop the run, and as some teams have been able to do, and continue to put Peabody in 3rd and long situations, that's certainly going to help them with Salem's tremendous linebacking crew. But I think if I had to pick just one thing that this game's going to come down to, it's can Corey Grimes get time to set his feet and get the ball deep into the secondary? And if he can, it could potentially be a great day for Salem. And if he can't, Peabody's probably going to be feeling pretty good about his chances to win the game.
All right, Phil, I want to jump to you. You've seen Danvers a lot this year. They're going to Marblehead. You've seen, yeah. I think you were there at the very first Marblehead game. Does that sound right?
I've seen Marblehead twice, yeah.
Okay.
No, 3 times I've seen Marblehead.
Okay.
I've seen Marblehead 3 times, yeah.
Well, what do you think? What's your gut telling you? What are you looking at for matchups and a game there over in Marblehead Friday?
Well, I mean, recent history would tell you Marblehead should be favored. I think they've won 16 out of 17 the last regular season games.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot. Of course, Danvers did win a playoff game against them in 2015. Somebody playing now, that's ancient history, but Marblehead has really had Danvers's number. However, I think you might have to make Danvers a slight favorite. And I do emphasize slight, but they've won 5 in a row. They're playing really good ball. Marblehead 2-4, but they've won 2 in a row, and they've looked really good in doing so. And they've had an extra week to get ready for this because they had a bye last week. Danvers is going to be in the playoffs no matter what. Danvers is going to have a home game no matter what. Marblehead really needs to win this game to have a shot at getting into the postseason. So there's that hunger for Marblehead. There's a hunger for Danvers to go in on a 6-game winning streak into the playoffs and maybe get a top 4 spot in Division 5. So they're insured 2 home playoff games should they win their opener. Lot to play for here. I think Danvers has the more established quarterback, certainly, in Travis Voisin, but what I've seen from Marblehead the last couple of weeks where they've been alternating their own 2 quarterbacks with Colt Wales, who seems to be more of he can run the ball, but he seems to be more of a throwing option for Marblehead when they need it. Or they can also go with the sophomore Finn Gallup, who he's clicking on something like 70% of his passes. You know, they can both run, they can both throw. They're getting some of their better players back healthy. Brooks Keith is back and feeling good. Chris DeWitt, Ryan Kamos, Andy Palmer's back. The line is getting solidified. So Marblehead is playing its best ball at the right time. I think this is really a pick 'em, and this is, of course, after 90 seconds after I said Danvers might be a slight favorite, but it's pretty razor thin, the margin. You could make great cases for either team winning this game. I do think Marblehead needs it a little more, but Danvers wants to go in there and win and shake this regular season loss streak that they've had against Marblehead off their backs.
Danvers will go ahead, Matt. I'm sorry.
Well, they won the title, what, 2 or 3 years ago?
That was the one win, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not the season before the fall too. You know, and then Josh Robertson kind of had a little luck with Danvers there, but and they've been a lot of close games. That's the thing. I mean, unlike a lot of the teams Marblehead's kind of had these long streaks against, they've sort of dominated most of the games. Danvers is kind of the one team that's played it pretty close and had its heart broken on some field goals a couple of times. And the one they won, right? It was Max Leet that made the game-winning field goal.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
So,
and didn't they lose one time on
yeah,
like a Hail Mary pass too? I mean, this is back when I think Matt Jenkins was still working for us at the time, and Danvers had scored late to go ahead. I want to say in the early 2010s. And Danvers had some kind of crazy return. I'm sorry, Marblehead had some kind of crazy return to win it.
It was like a hook and ladder they ran.
Yeah.
2012 or I think 12, something like that. I think Sean Rogers was the coach.
He was
at the time for Danvers. You know, so it's very interesting. I think these are two of the more cerebral coaching staffs, and so you wonder if you know, with the bye week, if Marblehead's going to have cooked up something crazy, right? Or if they just are maybe they want Salem to think that Salem, yeah. Maybe they want Danvers to think they cooked up something crazy. So Danvers is like over preparing for stuff, and it's kind of a whole like, well, they know we know, but do they know we know? And it's just, you know, it's always a whole chess match between those two staffs, which is to me going to be very fascinating to play out. I will certainly have it on YouTube on the phone on the sidelines at Bertram just to kind of try to check in on what the matchups are and what's going on. It's really juicy.
Off the top of my head, Danvers is the last team to beat Marblehead in conference aside from Peabody, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, and Revere maybe. I don't remember if the Revere, they lost to Danvers and Revere in back-to-back years, and I don't remember which one was 2018, one was 2019, and I don't remember which one was which.
Okay.
All right, good stuff. The other thing Danvers has going against them is they have to drive through Salem on Halloween weekend. So that's just something else to worry about. But
Ryan Nolan told me they're probably going to leave about 4:00.
Yeah.
Which I think is pretty smart.
Yeah,
maybe they stop off and get some Kit Kats or something. I don't know.
Yeah, if they go through Revere and on up, they'll be okay. I think that'll be it.
I assume if they stop at Village Roast Beef, they'll be told that we don't serve Falcons here. So.
All right, we had a couple of other things we could have gotten to tonight, but I see on the wall, the clock here, that we're out of time. So, gentlemen, thank you so much. Great stuff, and have a great weekend. And it looks like it's not going to rain too much, and enjoy it.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you,
All
fellas.
right, take
Hey,
care.
Bill.
See you guys.